we all come into this world as this innocent little being that doesn't have any judgments and doesn't want any harm on any person or anything. And we come in with this harmony and this love and this openness and this curiosity. Like, that's who we all are at our very core. And then things happen in our lives and we get labeled as one thing and another thing and a different thing. We start maybe accepting some of those labels as true, and we start acting out as if those labels are true. And in a sense, we may completely lose our identity. If you've ever felt like you were destined for more, you're in the right place. It's time to break out of the box you've been placed in. The world is waiting for your light. Hey friend, thanks for joining me for another talk. Today I want to dive a little bit deeper into this topic of patterns that we see repeating themselves in our lives. So last week we talked about triggers, and we did mention briefly about how different triggers can show up in the form of patterns, but I want to go deeper into this topic because this is something that I think is very, very important, and it's something that I've been paying a lot of attention to in my life, and I've noticed that things really do seem to show up over and over again, except like it'll show up as a specific problem or situation in my life, and then I'll resolve it. But then it shows up again, and it's a completely different situation, it's completely different people, it's a different scenario, but it brings up the same types of emotions. And I've noticed that some certain scenarios that happen that are stressful, that I perceive as stressful, that my husband doesn't perceive as stressful, for example. So you have a situation where one situation, the facts of the situation are there, but our perception of the situation completely different. And I have a harder time with it, whereas he has an easier time with it, or vice versa. You might notice this with your spouse, like certain things make your spouse so angry and you're like, why does this make you so angry? This is not a big deal, right? And vice versa. So I'm going to give you a story. I share this story because it's kind of funny, but it's very, very powerful because it was a healing moment for me, and I was able to overcome and get on the other side of a pattern that was showing up for me for a very long time, like probably since childhood. So when we first moved to where we live now in Charleston, we lived in an apartment. And we got a dog because when we moved here, I promised my boys that we would get a dog, and we were kind of struggling, like being new, and we thought that getting a dog would just help us make it feel more like home. So we got this puppy, and we're training the puppy and all the things that go in with the puppy. But the funny thing is about the apartment complex where we were staying is that they had a rule that if you had a dog, you had to give them the DNA sample from the dog, basically a poop sample, so that they had it on file, and so that if there was poop, your dog's poop found on the grounds, that you would get fined. So it's, you pick up after your dog, you don't get fined. You don't pick up after your dog, they send in the poop to the lab and you get fined. Anyway, we had a situation where I got a letter in the mail, and it said, your dog's DNA has been found on the grounds, and here's your fine. And they fined us like $150. And I was just like in complete shock, first of all, when this came in, because first of all, we always pick up after the dog. That's like not even a question. And I could not remember a time that I didn't, or how on earth could that even happen. And then I remembered that actually there was one situation where we had opened the front door and he escaped, and we had to go running after him and looking for him. And I have a theory that it was during that escape that he must have pooped and we didn't see it. And that was the sample that they found. But the important thing is, the point of the story is that when that letter came in, I was completely gutted. I was so upset. I was crying. I called the front desk in tears, like, how dare you, assess this fine? We are such great tenants. Like, I vacuumed the hallway. Like, I was the type of, I don't know. I treated that apartment as if it was my home, truly. And I kept it really neat and clean. And I would always go above and beyond and straighten out the common areas and really make sure that everything was neat and tidy and pretty. And I always picked up after my dog. Like, it's just something that I would never not do. And I felt so like betrayed by this fine, because I knew that it wasn't me. I knew that it wasn't something that I would ever do intentionally at all. And it made me just so upset, but like more upset than what I think would have been labeled as like normal, okay? like I was really, really intensely hurt and upset. And as this is happening and I'm having all these emotions, I'm taking a step back and I'm kind of asking myself, like, why am I so upset by this? So I look over at my husband. He's not really upset. Like, he's a little irritated that he has to pay $150 for something that was an accident, but he's not like emotionally gutted. He's not crying. He's not having a response, And then here's me, I'm like in a puddle. Okay. And I identified this feeling that I was feeling, and I took to my journal like I do, because what I've discovered now is that when you want to work through an emotion, it's really, really useful to just take out a journal and start writing out your feelings. And instead of like getting on the phone and venting to a friend and like, putting your stress onto someone else, instead of doing that, open up your notebook and just start writing. Like, just get it all out on the paper. What are you feeling? Why? How? Just all the details. What happened? Like, as if you were talking to a friend, but without actually talking to a friend, because it helps to kind of like contain those emotions. You're removing them physically from your in here or in here, and you're placing them onto the paper. So you're like physically getting them out of you, but you're not transferring the emotions onto another human being, which I think is useful. It can be helpful sometimes to talk it out. I'm not saying that you should never talk about your negative emotions, but I found that for me, journaling is kind of one of those things where I'm able to put a conclusion to it. Whereas if I just talk about it, then I just talk about it, I vent, and then maybe there's another person that I get on the phone with, I vent to them, and then I vent to someone else, and I vent to someone else. And there's not necessarily ever like a feeling of resolve. It's just this feeling of this continued, I'm upset, I need to get this out. And it never seems like it's enough. Like, no matter how many times you get something out, you still feel like you want to like get it out some more because you didn't resolve it. Okay. So anyway, so I take out my journal and I wrote everything out, and I kind of asked myself, I went through sort of these journal prompts, one of which was, what is it that you're feeling? And the emotion that I was really feeling, I guess, the most, and what was really just making me cry and upset, is this feeling of being misunderstood. That I've had this feeling before, and that it felt really, really terrible to be misunderstood, to be labeled as something that I'm just so not, right? Like I am just so not that person that they labeled me as in that letter, in that fine. Like they put a label on me that wasn't true, you know? It was false and it felt wrong and it felt like, I don't know, it felt like a betrayal. It just felt like I didn't have a voice to stand up for myself. Like there was nobody that I could really tell that, no, that's not my character. That's not what I do around here. That's not how I keep the grounds around. You know, there was like nobody really that I could express my truth to. Because the lady on the phone, when I called her, and I was kind of trying to say all of those things through my frustration, she was just kind of like, well, the rules are the rules, and the results came back, and you can't really argue because it's black and white, and that was it, case closed. You know, there was no way for me to really be able to go any farther than that. It was just like, this is it, it's already been decided, done, right? So it was bringing up these tremendous feelings of being misunderstood. I think many of us have that innate feeling a lot of the time, is the feeling of being misunderstood. And sometimes when we get into arguments with people, the underlying factor is like, no, you just don't get it. Like you just don't get where I'm coming from, right? So this is a pattern that repeats itself in different parts of your life, and it was definitely coming up for me, and it came up for me so strong that I really felt the need to like sit there and identify it and think about like, when was the first time that I remember feeling this way, and when are other times that I remember feeling this way, right? And kind of thinking and going back and getting that out on paper. And then the final journal prompt that I asked myself and that I wrote through is a very simple question. And that is this true? Is this true? Is it true that you're a dirty person? Is it true that you're a messy person? Is it true that you don't clean up after your dog? Is it true that you're a rule breaker, or that you're, you know, a criminal, or whatever, wherever my mind was going? No, it's completely not true. So what is true? What is true? And you write out what is true. You know, actually, what is true is that I always try to do my best. I always come from a place of good intentions. I've always wanted to do the right thing. I've always wanted to follow the rules. That is the truth. Because inside, I am, and so are you, love and light, right? We're all love and light. We all come into this world as this innocent little being that doesn't have any judgments and doesn't want any harm on any person or anything. And we come in with this harmony and this love and this openness and this curiosity. Like that's who we all are at our very core. And then things happen in our lives and we get labeled as one thing and another thing and a different thing. We start maybe accepting some of those labels as true, and we start acting out as if those labels are true. And in a sense, we may completely lose our identity based on people's expectations of us and based on the labels that people have put on us. And we start acting as something that's completely different than what our real truth is. So when you're upset and you feel like you've been misjudged and you feel like someone's not understanding you, it's really useful to just write out, is that true? And what is actually true? What is the real truth for you? And I can tell you that when I wrote all of this out, And I really put like a cold stop and a conclusion and a resolution to the whole thing because I felt instantly better. And I knew then, and it has happened this way. I knew then that this would never come up for me again, that I would never again have such a huge emotional response to someone misunderstanding me. Because I worked through it, I put it all down on the page. And the truth that is the truth, that is my truth, is the only truth that matters. Nothing that anyone can ever think of me or label me or say about me or think about me matters, right? Because it's not the truth. I know the truth, and that's all that matters. And that's not to say that people aren't going to hurt your feelings. Obviously, people are going to sometimes say things that will hurt your feelings. And, it's okay to get hurt, and it's okay to get upset, and it's okay to cry and get angry and get mad and be cranky for a few days. It's okay. And like all those emotions are always going to come out. Like, I don't know why. Sometimes I feel like in the personal growth world and like in the spiritual growth world, there's this notion that once you reach this level of awareness, that you're going to just be positive and happy forever and all of till the end of time. And like, I guess that is the goal. Like, I would love to feel happy every single day, but this just is not it. Like, there's a scale of emotions. I think I'll go through the scale of emotions maybe next week, because I love talking about the scale of emotions. But there's a scale of emotions going from way up here to way down there. And we're meant to feel all of them. And you're not going to escape the scale. I don't know why. Maybe one day we'll have the answer as to why do we have to have all of these emotions? But we're down here on this earth to feel them all. Like it or not, you're going to feel them all. And it's kind of like the tides, they come in, they go out, they come in, they go out. And that's kind of how emotions are. They come and they go out. As you get better, you can absolutely learn how to keep yourself in those elevated emotions for more of the time and be in those lower emotions for less of the time. But so you're still going to encounter situations and people that will cause you to feel a certain way and put you in a certain type of mood. And that's just a way of life. But the takeaway here is that you really can get good at knowing yourself so well that it doesn't matter, or it's not going to matter for very long, if somebody says something crummy or if somebody thinks something crummy about you. It's like that old saying, like, what anyone else thinks about me is none of my business. And it is so true. It is none of your business, because for every individual that exists in the world, there's that many opinions and there's that many perspectives. So like billions of them. So no matter how good you are or how good your intentions are, out of 7 billion people, there are going to be people that are going to look at you and not see those good intentions and not feel what you're trying to put out, right? And that's a very big possibility. In fact, it'd be like completely impossible for every person to perceive you in the exact way that you're showing up in the world. So it doesn't matter what people think. All that matters is what you think of yourself. All that matters is that you show up in a way that is congruent with what you're feeling on the inside, like the alignment that you show up with. So if you feel like, you want to be a positive person or a happy person, but you're showing up 99% of the time and you're like grumpy and in a bad mood, you're gonna feel the misalignment of that. you personally, you're going to feel that that doesn't feel right, because what you want and what you know is your truth in here and what you're doing on the outside is a mismatch. You're going to feel the misalignment of that. And that's going to be your place of work where you want to work. Journal. Is this true? I showed up really cranky on the highway today, and I was short-tempered with the driver in front of me, and that felt like a mismatch between what I want to be, who I want to be, and who I was. And why did I do that? And what was the trigger, right? What was the pattern? Why did that show up? Why did I react the way that I did? And is that really ultimately my truth? And if the answer is no, now you can work through and ask, well, what is my truth? And how do I wish to show up in the world? And all of this stuff that I talk about, this is like lifelong work. This isn't something that you're ever going to be done doing. This is work that you have to show up for every single day. Every day, and we're just getting a little bit better and a little bit better. And some days I fall all the way down and I feel like I'm like right at the beginning. Like some days I wake up and I feel like I'm on the top of the world, and I understand and I just get it all, and I forgive everything and everyone and myself, and I know and I feel all this like love, and like some days I just feel like I'm on top of the world, and then some days I wake up and it was like I never even read one personal development book, and I feel completely disempowered, and I feel like a victim, and I feel like people should feel sorry for me. Like that's just how it is. That's like literally how it is. It's just this process of, yes, we're always getting a little bit better, but I don't know if I'll ever reach the place where I feel like I'm completely done. I don't think that happens until you're on the other side. I think that when we're in this human form here, we're always gonna stumble. We're always gonna have to check ourselves and revisit the journal and revisit the questions and asking ourselves the really hard questions. All right, that's what I've got for you today. Join me next week. I think I am going to do the emotional scale. We're going to go through all the emotions. Not all bad emotions are as bad as you think they are. And the emotional scale helps us to really see that and identify that. So we'll catch you next week. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.